There are many incredible cricket Hollywood crossovers, but maybe nothing better than when Jason Gillespie rode his bat. When most people think of Gillespie's batting, it's his last knock. Australia lost a late wicket on day one, and the quick went in as a night watcher. He was there at the end of day one, and then at the end of day two, and then again at dusk on day three. He got Australia to stumps 3 times. Talk about an overachiever. In total, he would bat for 425 balls and score 201 runs. And he would never bat again in a test match. This might be the stupidest innings in our sport. Many people remember Gillespie only for this, yet despite a historic knock, his batting was painful. He never met a ball he didn't need to dead bat. He had this low backlift and a decent forward press, and he was not afraid to use it. Occasionally, he would deploy a checked punch push that ricocheted off his bat like he was using the leaves from a willow tree and not the wood. But he was hard to dismiss. Especially by the end of his career, the man would dig himself in like an Alabama tick. A year before he embarrassed all the previous night watchers in one go, he went up against New Zealand. When Adam Gilchrist's 126 was over, Gillespie came out with 450 runs on the board, meaning Australia's lead was already 100. 2 quick wickets fell, and Gillespie was joined by Glenn McGrath, a far worse tail end. The two of them added 115 runs to almost end New Zealand as a nation. Looking back, the Kiwis had a poor attack to dismiss the tail on what was a very flat wicket. So somehow, for the 6th time in his life, Glenn McGrath passed 20 runs. A huge achievement for a man who failed to score 5 runs in an innings on 91 occasions. And more amazingly, despite 138 test innings, in this knock he made almost 10% of his career total with 61. At the other end, his mate Dizzy Gillespie made his top score at the time of 54 not out. Weirdly, a month later he'd make another 50 against Pakistan, and then about a year after that, the triple. It was some purple patch for him. To bring up his milestone against the Kiwis, Gillespie inside edge back past his stumps. He was so sheepish, he wasn't even sure he should raise his bat. But then he remembered that he'd promised his friends from club cricket something. So he rode his bat. Not carried it like an old club pro, not throwing it like a proper tail-ender, but he rode and spanked his bat like it was an imaginary bucking bronco. It was directly taken from the movie Happy Gilmore, a 1996 comedy starring a young Adam Sandler. Jason Gillespie was riding his bat on the same gabba where Don Bradman and Richie Benaud had played, because of a movie that was almost a decade old by that point. 259 wickets at 26 this man took. His bowling was no joke. His batting was no joke either, in a completely different way. But because of A Dare with Friends, when I think about him, the first thing that comes to mind is him honouring a comedy that became famous because of DVD rentals. And so there is an unmistakable truth here. Jason Gillespie rode his bat because Happy Gilmore used his feet like a cricketer to smash a golf ball. The Good Areas conversation never ends over on our live channel. Head over and watch it all there. Ross Taylor couldn't see at night or when the clouds were in. Eventually he had to see an eye specialist who would fix his eyesight. In the 2 years before the change, he still averaged more than 50 in international cricket. The top level of batting talent can basically see in the dark. That is who we are talking about in our new book, The Art of Batting. Head over and order your copy today. Peter Saylor didn't grow up in a traditional cricket family. He only played the sport because he had to do something while his older brother was at football practice. When he played at Lords against England, he didn't actually own pads. Most cricketers get nervous just by entering the home of cricket, but it meant nothing to Saylor. And as if to prove that, when he took the wicket of Paul Collingwood, he danced like a penguin. Why? Because a few days earlier, he'd been watching another Adam Sandler film, Billy Madison. And on a ground so sacred that it has a permanent chair for the king, Saylor performed an ode to Sandler. To say that the American comic has a big influence on cricket would be a stretch. But cricket has been used as a punchline in many American movies. How about the scene from Naked Gun 33 1/3? Isn't that a cricketer in the background? Of course, that's not where your eye is drawn. Also, the film they are parodying here, The Crying Game, has cricket. There's more, like when Raphael said in the original Ninja Turtle movie that you had to know about crumpets to understand cricket. Stranger still, Oscar winner Russell Crowe might not even crack the 2 most talented members of his own family. Imagine being a Hollywood darling, but still having your parents bang on about how both your cousins are New Zealand captain there. Talking about films and skippers, England even had a test captain who went on to be a Hollywood legend. See, Aubrey Smith could seriously bowl. And of course, as we always have to mention, Boris Karloff brought Frankenstein's monster to life. And he used to be a wicketkeeper for the Hollywood Cricket Club. There's heaps of other weirder things too, like Mick Jagger, the star of the film Ned Kelly, also being a little bit more famous for being in the Rolling Stones, once partnered with ESPN Cricinfo to stream a series in the mid-90s. He was like one frame every 5 seconds. It was almost completely unwatchable. There is no way that Mick watched this and got any satisfaction. And of course, we also have Shane Warne dating Liz Hurley, who was famous once for a movie that no one really remembers now. Hell, even the basketball movie Hustle has a cricket bat in Spain for some reason. But do you know who the star of that film was? Adam Sandler. So when you talk about cricket in Hollywood, somehow it always comes back to him. It always comes back to Sam. The movie that propelled him to worldwide attention was about a genteel sport invented by the British Isles: golf. The plot is that a violent ice hockey player who can't skate is really good at hitting a golf ball because of his extra power. But Sandler's character, Happy Gilmore, hates the sport. Of course, along the way, many hijinks ensue, and it is impossible to note how important this film was on 1990s Australian male culture. Well, it's not impossible because you saw Jason Gillespie riding his bat. People took to golf courses and driving ranges around Australia to try and emulate Happy Gilmore's weird golf swing, the one where he runs at the ball and whacks it. And many figured that they should be able to do that because there is something in his swing that is very familiar to people from Australia. When I did my research, I found that many people have looked at this swing a lot from a golf perspective to break down piece by piece. And it's really similar to a regular golf swing, but with a runner. But as far as ice hockey goes, their main power comes from a slap shot. And when you look at this side by side with Happy's swing, they're not even that close. Skaters don't actually run all that much on the ice because of, the skates. And most slap shots are from a steady base, like golf. There is more slap than hit. So let me, a cricket analyst, try and break down the Happy Gilmore heave. He starts a long way from the ball, and of course he needs to get there, but he doesn't actually run. For want of a better term, he skips down towards the ball, crossing his legs over. Sometimes it's more of a shuffle, but it's not skating or running. And then he plants his foot down on the same length as the ball and swings through the line. There are slightly different versions that he does, like this one is more of a walk. This one has a bit of a stutter in the middle, but he's trying to cross over his legs, but gets it wrong. But you can see, if this is like any other sport, it's cricket. This is literally what players do to spin. Skip down, get their feet near the pitch, and then swing through the line. Happy Gilmore is a slogger. And if you're still unsure, here is Yashasvi Jaiswal dancing down to Nathan Lyon. The Indian star sees the ball, skips towards it while briefly crossing over his feet, puts his boot right near the ball, and then swings through the line. The only difference between this and a Happy Gilmore shot is he doesn't wear a Bruin stock, there's less swearing, and it won't be a hole-in-one. Adam Sandler is using his feet to spinners, there is no doubt. But you might feel that this is all a little bit tenuous still. So here is my final bit of evidence. In 2014, a film came out with Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore. That doesn't really narrow it down much, as they make 20 movies a year together. But this one was called Blended, and part of the plot was two families going to South Africa, and then, hijinks ensue. But cricket also ensues. You can see a fairly accurate game being played. I'm pretty dubious of cricket in films because usually the pitches just look terrible. They don't look like, cricket pitches at all. This one is better than most. It's much better than the usual movie trick of just cutting the lawn shorter. Whoever put this together knows the game, and you don't often see that. However, the bit in the background is even more important. That is where Adam Sandler's character is teaching his son how to swing a baseball bat. But they're in South Africa, so it's obviously all cricket stuff. And they need a pitcher. And the way they ended up with their choice is kind of wild. Obviously, most Adam Sandler movies have an athlete as a cameo. More than 60 professional athletes have combined for more than 70 performances in Adam Sandler movies. Blended had Shaquille O'Neal earlier, but that's not enough. The new Happy Gilmore movie has more than 20 athlete cameos. Hustle is ridiculous. It's getting to a point where you need to be searching online as you watch a Sandler film. So clearly they were going to need someone famous. If not to US audiences, then at least to cricket fans. Being that it was South Africa in 2014, I suppose the obvious choice was Jarrod Callis. And I would personally write an entire Sandler movie just to watch him act in it. But instead of Googling who is the most famous South African cricketer, Sandler knew Nelson Mandela's former bodyguard, Rory Steyn. No relationship. As a legend in South Africa himself, he had connections with their cricketers. And next thing you know, the greatest bowler of his generation is pitching at Sandler's fake son as he tries to learn baseball. So not only is cricket in one of his movies, but so is a famous player. As Dale Steyn bowls, pitches, to a kid swinging a baseball, cricket, bat, while Sandler gets angry with him. It's not a great moment in cinema or cricket history, but it's lots of fun. To recap, Sandler inspired perhaps the most weird celebration for a 50, invaded Lords, inserted a cricket bat into a Spanish basketball flick, and made fun of Dale Steyn's bowling. On top of all that, his most iconic movement on screen is basically using his feet to spin. Adam Sandler once said, "I'm not particularly talented, I'm not particularly good looking, and yet I'm a multi-millionaire." However, what he left off is that he's also a cricket cinematic icon.